we learn and grow from story. Information never changes minds. It never changes lives. But stories and examples of seeing things play out in front of your eyes, those are the things that bring about life change.
Welcome to an inspirational people interview on the Share Life podcast. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and today I'm speaking with content strategist and personality expert, Cory Draper. Cory, say hello.
Hi there.
Cory helps dads understand their wiring and personality. He coaches dads through a personality assessment program around temperaments, working genius, and Enneagram. His goal is to help them better understand who they are at home, at work, and internal life. Cory is also the content strategist for the Irresistible Church Network at North Point Ministries, where he focuses on creating content for church leaders who are interested in leading an outward-facing church. So I think the most important question before I start here, talking about dads, what was it like to be the son of Don Draper from Mad Men?
My mom loved it and then hated it. No.
Learned a lot about marketing those days, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's funny. When that show came out, people kept asking me if I've seen that show, and I still to this day have not seen it.
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
I
you're
felt like I
kind of like
showed lots of
distancing yourself from your father? Is that what's going on
yeah,
here?
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's just too close. Yeah, too much. But
It's
yeah, I just
it's
never
one of
got
those
into it.
shows that's very tragic, so it's you got to be ready for it, but
Sure,
it's
yeah.
definitely compelling. So
Well, I heard it was slow moving too, and it's like,
yeah,
just the motivation to get started on it. But I
uh,
do like that it kind of boosted my name a little bit.
yeah. So tell us about your story. Where do you come from, and how'd you get to where you are?
Yeah. It always starts with this. My dad is a Southern Baptist music minister. So I've grown up in church, and I've
What part of
also,
the South? Like Georgia or somewhere else?
so I was born in Marietta, but when I was 6 months old, my dad got a job in South Georgia, a small town called Hazelhurst.
Okay.
And so I've spent the first 6 years of my life roughly in South Georgia. In fact, if you watch old home movies, you hear a much different accent than what I'm speaking right now. And then we moved from there to St. Petersburg, Florida. So it's a pretty big culture shock there. And then I spent my formative years in St. Pete, and I'm youngest of three too. I'm the youngest. I'm the baby. So that shaped a lot of who I am. Just we moved around a lot. I graduated high school back up in Georgia, and then went back to college in Florida. And
And real quickly,
yeah,
for people that didn't grow up in Southern Baptist or in Southern Georgia, tell us, like, what was it like?
what was it like? Well, it definitely was eye opening, and I will say that I have a lot of respect for my parents and how they raised us because you have. If you haven't grown up in that world, you think of things like Seventh Heaven and like all the drama of that show. If you remember that old show, Seventh Heaven,
Yeah.
about the minister and his kids. Um, there is a lot of drama that happens for preachers' kids and ministers' kids where they run amok and they usually are the worst people. It wasn't like that for us. And I feel like our parents really loved us and raised us. And I think the key is that they did not shelter us um, like other preachers' kids are sheltered. They kind of dealt with hard truths with us of how the world is and how the lens through, the Bible and Jesus and all that, and especially in church politics. So I grew up very involved in the church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and everything in between, like all the Easter productions, musicals,
Yep.
Christmas, all that stuff. My dad was running those, so I grew up on
Yeah.
stage in front of people. I felt like a celebrity kid in my little church. Thought way more of myself than I should have, but my parents were very open about how there can be drama, there can be politics, there could be people who lead the church that aren't Christ centered, and there can be people who fall and fail all the time into sin,
Mhm.
and it can happen to even church leaders. So I grew up knowing that. I think that helped set me up for working for a church in ministries, knowing that hey, nobody's perfect. Whereas I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, they get into ministry and they see people, pastors fail all the time, whether it be like sexual controversy or just staff health controversy, like they don't treat people well, and they don't really represent Christ, and it kind of throws their faith upside down. that never
Yeah.
really happened for me just because I knew it's a thing. Like, people are broken. And having that lens growing up and then in my adulthood, it serves me well. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. But growing up as a preacher's kid, it definitely was weird
Yeah.
and quirky.
What
People had
if
their
that
preconceived notions
if
of who
that
we
kid
were.
were watching right now, what would you tell him?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. If I as a kid was watching this right now, I would tell that kid, um, stay humble, but believe in yourself,
Yeah.
which goes pretty deep into who I was as a kid. But I, and it seems contradictory, but as a kid, I went through the waves of thinking way too much of myself and then also not giving myself enough credit
Yeah.
and not thinking enough of myself.
Mm. All right, well, keep going. Tell us what happened next.
Yeah, so I went to college at the University of Florida. Go Gators! I had an amazing time there. That was during the Tebow years. So I
Okay.
experienced, for those of you who are in sports, I experienced, it was a time where they won two basketball national championships and two football national championships, back to
Wow.
back to back to back to back.
And were
So
you
that was
going
my,
to the games when they're
I was,
playing?
yes, yep. I was going to the games. It was glorious. We were partying in the streets of Gainesville every year. It was a good time. I'm a big sports fan, so that was big for me. I studied in the College of Journalism, got a degree in telecommunications production, basically TV production,
Hmm.
and was really involved. So again, I grew up on stage, so I got really involved in improv comedy down there.
Okay, yeah.
So I've actually been doing improv for the last 20 years since I got involved there.
Oh. Do
We
you know
were
Jim
the
Carwish?
I've heard the name.
Okay,
Not familiar.
he's a friend of mine, improv guy. Um, funny enough, I met him on Twitter because he did a doodle of one of Andy Stanley's sermons when he was there one day. And
Cool.
but anyway, he'd probably be a good person for you to connect with.
Yeah.
And he's been on the podcast a lot, so
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been a passion of mine off and on. I could go off on why I think everybody should take an improv class.
yeah.
There's a lot of life skills to be learned there, but
Well, give us a couple of reasons why they should.
well, for one, it's public speaking, right? Like
Yeah,
you get rid of all shame when you get up
yeah,
on stage and you're having to think on the spot. It teaches you to engage your brain, obviously, think on the spot, but it also takes away that hesitation over time of um, stepping out without knowing where things are going. So you
mm,
step out there, you don't know where the end is, but you're going to trust that you're going to get there and your teammates are going to help you get there. So it requires a lot of trust and it requires saying yes and which we all need to learn. And it's actually, if you're a believer too, it's a good lesson in stepping out in faith and knowing that
mm,
yeah, everything's gonna be okay. Even if the scene crashes and burns, like we're gonna reset and we're gonna start over. We're gonna do it again, and you're
yeah.
gonna forget all about it. So there's a lot of really cool lessons there.
Yeah, I think if you can go through the valley of humiliation, like there's so many great rewards on the other side of that fear. And improv is a great way to do that because you're literally doing things that are probably at least at some point going to humiliate you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I've got a lot of great stories there, but
Yeah,
doing audiences of two people and still trying to put on a improv show, but
yeah,
it humbles you
yeah,
real quick, but also it really stretches you and it makes you look on the other side and be like, hey, that wasn't that bad. Let's do it again.
yeah, yeah.
So
I think it's well, talk to us about just the dynamic there of humility and pride, because I think that's an important one
yeah.
to emphasize. Because the pride is, one of the deep-seated attitudes that really wrecks us. But this is an interesting way to work on it.
Yeah. And I mean, as it ties to improv, it is another thing where it kind of contradicts. You have to have the arrogance to be able to want to get on stage, get a suggestion from the audience and say, all right, I'm going to make something funny out of this. Like, let's
Yeah,
go. But at the same time, you don't know for sure if it's going to go well. And very often it does not. And, it is very humbling and it's a team sport too. So it's humbling in a way that stand up is not. Um, just in that like you're not just taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your teammates, and you're trying to lift each other up together. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of, this isn't about me. This is about us and the collective. Like the best improvisers are the ones who set up the joke, not the ones who tell the joke.
Mm,
They're the ones who plant the seeds for jokes later.
yeah.
Um, they're the givers, and you have to be humble going into that space,
Yeah.
or else your teammates are going to hate you, and things are just not going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, keep going. What's next in the story here? When does the asteroid hit? Tell us about that.
There were no real asteroids in my life, man. I've had a really really blessed life. And there definitely were ups and downs. In college, I did the whole thing where you venture off from your faith a little bit and you take some wounds, but honestly, I came out mostly unscathed. I tried to stay as faithful as I could to Christ, and God's really paved the way for me in that. I will say one big thing that happened in college, which ties into where I am now, is I discovered in my last year, and this was actually my worst year by way of my faith, a church popped up called Anthem Church,
Mhm.
and it was a strategic partner of North Point.
Mm.
And
In
this,
Atlanta area or somewhere else?
yeah, it was a strategic partner. This is in Gainesville, Florida. So it's like, this
Oh,
is,
oh, okay, okay.
yeah, so this is a church that, and I'll explain what a strategic partner was at that time, which it's basically, this is a church that decided they wanted to emulate North Point as much as possible. And they actually bought into a model that North Point offered, which was, if you're in a strategic partner, we'll give you all of our assets. So you will have all of our branded kids environments, Wombaland Up Street, Inside Out Transit, the you'll have Andy Stanley sermons that he will be your teaching pastor a lot of the time. So
Hmm.
we have a pastor at this church, but he only teaches some of the time. Most of the time, they'd put Andy Stanley up on a big screen, and that he's our teaching pastor. And the other pastor then just kind of runs the rest of the church and then preaches sometimes. And that was a model that worked actually pretty well for a while for a lot of churches. And this was, I had heard of North Point before. I'd actually been to North Point before. And so when this church popped up, I was like, yes, I'm in. And Anthem was great. I was part of their first ever men's group, and I was part of the like really early stages. They're still going strong in Gainesville, Florida, and honestly, they were just the best church in Gainesville. Before that, there were no churches that I felt they were all stuck in the '90s, and I
Yeah.
just could not. And so Anthem came along, and it was great. Unfortunately, that was my last year, so I went there and
Mm.
I had to leave. I got a job with the Gwinnett Braves, now the Gwinnett Stripers. So I
Oh, wow.
moved
What
back
year was
up,
that?
2010.
Okay, when
Uh,
did they start? Wasn't that around when they started?
yeah, they started in 2009, so it was their second
Okay.
season. Yeah.
Wow.
I got an internship as a promotions and entertainment intern. So I helped create videos for them, but I also, during the games, was running all the in between innings antics that they do, all the like trivias and races and all kinds of stuff. I was coordinating that with a promo team. If
Okay.
you had ever been to a Stripers game or Braves game, they have the races where it's like mascot races.
Yeah.
At the time, it was sponsored by an eye doctor. So these are like big inflatable eyeballs. And they had like a green eye, a blue eye, and a hazel eye. And I was in that race every single game. I was one of those eyeballs.
Oh, okay.
And that was just one of the things I did. I also was the mascot chopper for a couple of events. Like they threw me into everything. It's one of those like jobs you get as a young 20s rush. So I'll do everything.
Now I feel like you're holding out on us. Tell us about this radio hosting thing.
The what?
Your radio hosting,
The
on
radio
air
hosting?
hosting. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man, that was in college too. So in UF, I don't know if they have this anymore, this particular station. They had a rock station called Rock 104 that, you hear about college stations where it's like, oh, it's just like on campus. You can have DJs and play music. This was a legitimate, like it reached to Jacksonville from Gainesville, like
Hmm.
rock station, but they would have students come in and learn basically how to, be in
Oh, okay.
radio. And so
Yeah.
I did that for a while. I actually did an overnight Friday night into Saturday shift, 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. for about a year. and I was a rock DJ. Basically it was just setting up the next song and reading promos online. Every once in a while, I'd get a phone call of people who were not in their correct mind,
Yeah.
and it would get very entertaining. But yeah, it was a good experience. I loved it.
So when are you going back
Going back, yeah, yeah,
to
not
radio?
yeah. That that's a dying medium. Podcasting is all the rage these
Yeah,
days. Yeah,
yeah.
as you know.
The new version.
Yeah.
All right, so you go to Gwinnett Braves, and then how do you end up at North Point?
So I did the Gwinnett Brace for a year, and then I knew I wanted to work at North Point. It was a thing where I had, when I had
Oh,
moved up
okay.
to Gwinnett, I was like, they didn't have Gwinnett Church yet, so it was just the three campuses, North Point, Buckhead, and Brownsbridge Church. And I
And
had,
why did you was it because of your experience in Florida? Or was there another reason that added to that
yeah,
once you were
that's a great
here?
question. So for me, was in film and video, and North Point was one of the churches that like they not only did film and video, but they did it well, like high quality. I mean, just and when you hear about something where it's like it's the Christian version of something, automatically you just think it's gonna be lower
If you're a
quality,
90s person, then yes.
especially yes. And that North Point was like notorious for like, no, we're good, like we're good quality, they have professional quality. So to me, it was like, oh man, I would love to work there because I know it'd be a great place to work. It's in ministry, um, and, that's just something I knew I wanted to do. So I had an in. I knew somebody who worked at North Point. He was the music director at the time, and his name was Eddie Kirkland. And I emailed him. I'm like, hey, so I got this job that's ending, and I really, what I want to do is work in North Point. How do I like, do I send resumes? Like, how do we get in here? And he's like, man, honestly, the best thing to do is just start volunteering. He's like, they have production volunteers all the time. So I submitted to volunteer at all three campuses, and the one that responded was Buckhead Church. And my first night volunteering, they asked people to stay behind and help break down the set because they were going to do a set rebuild. And I decided to stay behind and started talking to people. Struck up a conversation with a guy, and he was asking me questions. He's like, "Hey, so what do you do? What are you into?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm into film and video. Just finished Gwinnett Braves. Don't know what I'm doing next." And he's like, "Oh, I actually work for the media department at North Point, and
Mm,
hire contractors all the time. If you want to send me your reel and your resume, if we ever
yeah.
need somebody, I'll let you know." I'm like, "Sweet." So I uh, I sent him those things, not really expecting him to call me the next day. That's just one of those things where, you hear it all the time. Oh, yeah, send me a resume. We'll see if we work something out. So I didn't have expectations there. And sure enough, I didn't really hear back from him. Got an internship with Fox Sports South, which I guess now it's rebranded a few times. FanDuel Sports Network, I think is what they are now. And that lasted for a few months. And my last day, I got an email from Joe, which is the guy I had talked to like 6 months earlier, saying, "Hey, we have a need. Could you come and interview for it?" And I
Mm.
was like, "Yeah, sure." And so my first job was every Sunday hitting the record button on all the different cameras, and capturing the Sunday services for each service. And
And
then this
that's
was
when there were tapes, right? DV tapes or something
exactly
like.
this was
Yeah.
when it was on tapes because this is 2011 at this point. And
I'll,
yeah, so
I'll sh-
I'm like switching tapes
this
and
is
I'm hitting record
this
and
is my video camera from when I was a kid. A little high eight digital 8 camera.
huh? That's right, the mini DV.
This one wasn't DV. The one I got after that was DV, but that one was
Gotcha.
high
Okay.
eight. Yeah.
Oh, high eight. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to switch out tapes in between services, label them. I also edited for North Point Online because they would do replays and they wanted to edit together the best of the two services for the replays. So
Oh, okay.
doing that in between and then so I did that for a few months and then just by being there, they asked me to do more and more. It spilled into like a full time contract role. I was coming during the week,
Yeah.
editing Andy Stanley sermons for DVD for the TV show they had, which is now Your Move, for
So
partners.
do you happen to ever meet Joe Kissick? Um, he was the one that helped y'all get on the Saturday night after Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I never met him personally, but yeah,
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I
he was a
haven't.
friend of mine, so I knew him while he was doing that stuff with y'all.
Yeah, so I
So,
was I was the first editor for Your Move of Andy.
okay, cool.
Yeah, which is a cool story. I mean, for listeners that don't know, I mean that was a show where we basically edited Andy Stanley sermons down to 28 minutes and 30 seconds to fit in the slot to air locally behind SNL on Saturday nights. So you'd be watching SNL and suddenly Andy
Yeah,
Stanley pops up and gives you some good life lessons.
yeah,
Uh, so and that's still going, but no longer on TV. They have their own. They're going digital at this point.
yeah.
So I did that, and then that learned. I mean, and that was 2011, and ever since then, my role has evolved. I became I was an editor for a while, became a producer for a couple of years. So I was, producing and directing a lot of videos that we show in service and elsewhere. Then got a job. I got actually pretty passionate about online, digital media, social media. Got a job with Woodstock City Church as
Oh,
their digital media director. Did that for a few years. I had a cup of coffee in the elementary school up street as a
okay.
production director
Yeah.
um, for a couple
So you've
years.
really worked with all ages then in that regard.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
great. I listened to your interview with Trey McKnight, who I've met before. He mentioned the
Oh,
whole
okay.
like jack of all trades, master of none. I related to him on that. Like I
Well,
got
do you remember,
a lot of
did you know
experience.
Dave Adamson?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I got together with him in 2014, I think. And I brought up the jack of all trades thing. And he said, if you actually look at the quote, there's another part of it, which is jack of all trades, master of one.
Mhm.
And so we tend to remember the master of none, but the master of one is sort of the piece to kind of hang on to because you're a master of one thing and then you're jack of all these trades, and that allows
Right.
you to pull those into the one thing. So
Sure.
in other
Yeah.
words, the jack of all trades, master of none is a stage towards the master of one.
Yeah. I like that. That's
Yeah.
a great way of
So
looking at
that's something he told me about. So that
it.
was it stuck with me. Yeah.
That is good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with learning how to do a bunch of different things. It just opens up more
Yeah.
opportunities. So,
Yeah.
and it has for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that led to me getting a job now currently with the Irresistible Church Network, which is North Point Ministries. It's our what used to be strategic partners. So I was talking about Anthem Church before as a strategic partner. This is the newest iteration of that, and as a content strategist, so I help with we have a bunch of content that we distribute to partners, but also a lot of helpful content that we want to kind of make public of like, hey, this is how we think church should go and how church should be. Maybe not all churches, but there definitely should exist a church like this.
Hmm.
And letting people know kind of our mission and our vision behind that. And it's been a couple of years, and it's been awesome because I feel like it's come full circle because I started at a strategic partner, and now
Yeah.
I'm helping
You're the
like-minded
yeah.
churches.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know if this would relate, but I went on a Global X mission trip, which is, we went to Monterrey, Mexico, and I don't know if you call this a strategic partner, but they had like a North Point type of
Oh yeah,
church, or
yep.
are those the strategic partners?
They're part of our partner network. We don't call them strategic partners anymore, but they are an ICN partner. Yeah.
Okay. And so it was really cool to like go to this church that was like North Point, although everything was in Spanish, but they had Wumbaland and Upstreet, and it just felt like we were in a foreign land, but we felt at home. Like this is a place we could feel safe. That was a cool experience, to have that. So I don't know if that relates, but it seems similar.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what we want people to have. We know that there's been thousands of people to come through our churches, and a lot of visitors. People saying, "Hey, I wish we had a church like this where I
Mm,
live."
yeah.
And we believe that not. And I think where it shifted, especially within the last couple of years of what we do, we are not focused on making there be a North Point in every community because not every community needs a North Point. Every community
Hmm.
just needs a church that is as focused on the same things, the same core issues as North Point, like an outward facing church in every
Hmm.
community is what we believe. And that's where we're trying to get.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. So, is there anything else on the North Point Irresistible Network piece that you want to throw in before we pivot to your personality
Yeah,
adventure?
sure. I mean, I, I don't know who your target demographic is and your core audience, but if you're interested in kind of what we do for Irresistible Church Network, you can go to irresistible.church and kind of list out what we believe an irresistible church is, because it's like irresistible. What does that like? What does that even mean? How do you define that term? There's definitely
Yeah.
been a couple of books by Andy Stanley written about what he believes a church should look like, and so irresistible is one of those. It's kind of the theological backing of it, but then deep and wide is another that he's written about. Like, hey, this is the nuts and bolts of
Hmm.
how we think a church should, like the trajectory of North Point, and then like this is how we do it and how we believe it
Yeah.
should be. So if anybody's interested
And a
in
lot of it is about, well, I mean, the mission is to help people grow in their relationship with Jesus, but the framing is with by creating a church that unchurched people love to attend. So the idea is that the premise of the Irresistible book, like one of the first stories is Andy went somewhere in another country and this lady like literally walked like 2 hours to church every Sunday. And and then she comes to find out in America there's like a church on every corner and they're empty.
that.
So why is she walking? Andy's essentially asking himself, why is she walking 2 hours to go to church? And in America we can't even like get out of bed to go down the street. And so the idea is why is it irresistible to that lady and not to us? And then what can we do in America to change that? So that's part of the premise. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely scratching the surface of it. So
Yeah.
again, you can go to our website. There, even and if you're like, oh, I didn't know North Point had churches in like across the
Hmm.
U.S. It's like, oh yeah, we have them across the country and the world. So if you go to our
Yeah.
website, you can find churches that right now exist. That they now again they may not look like North Point, but they are aligned with what we do. And
Yeah.
I guarantee, if you go there, if you like North Point and you go to that church, you will love your experience. So
Yeah. And that's actually what I use when I have someone I meet or connect with in another state, another or moves. And they're like, I trying to find a church.
yeah.
Like that's the site I go to look. Okay, that's my first option is if there's someone if there's a net church and network in that city, then I'll send them that one. And then if I can't find them, then I'll message people I know in the area. So
Yeah. Well, and one more thing I feel like I should say, and I don't know why I feel like I should say it. Maybe it's just because I've actually had kind of debates with my siblings about this, is I don't think there's one way to do church. I think there's many ways because there's many different types of people.
mhm.
And
And seasons of
wherever,
life too.
yeah, absolutely. Wherever you are in your faith journey, there should be a church that fits where you're at. And that doesn't mean that, the church needs to change its message. I just think that there needs to be different types of churches. Like an example I give is I have a friend who I grew up with who got really hardcore into drugs and like just really hit, I mean, the whole story, like hit rock bottom and stuff. And he came back to faith, but the church he joined was this very strict, like, I think it's Independent Baptist. I mean, they're still wearing suits every
Yeah,
week,
old school.
but there's very much like a regimented, like, I don't know, just very strict kind of church. I can't really explain it. And I kind of saw that, and I saw the kind of life change that was happening in him. And comparing to the life change I see happen in North Point, it's like, oh, it's the same life change. Like God's using the Spirit
Mhm.
to change people. He's meeting people where they're at, and He's sending them to the churches that they need to
Yeah.
go to. So it's a
Yeah, I
very
think a lot of
organic.
people yeah. I mean, I see a lot of people that have joined in the Catholic Church. And I think sometimes the rituals or the
Yeah,
structure like what people need is different than what I need. And so I do like your point there. And that's what I like about the church as a whole is we don't have to be like these loyalists to a particular denomination, I think, because we can look at it in a larger context that God's working through different churches to meet different
absolutely.
people. Yeah.
I just feel like I wanted to say that because it's like we don't feel like every church should run like North Point. Like I don't think
Yeah.
that. I don't think anybody here believes that, but we do believe that there needs to be a church that is outward focused in every community to meet people where they're at. So,
Yeah. 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 So tell us how you get into personality. Like how did you get into temperaments and Enneagram and
yeah.
the working genius? Like where did that all come into play here?
So it's actually it's a result of working here. So I mean, North Point is very big on staff health and staff culture. So we take all this the personality assessments just because it helps us understand each other and how we communicate to each other. And I definitely caught the bug on that one. In order to become an employee, we do Right Path, which is an
Okay.
assessment. But man, if you work here, it's like everybody automatically knows a bunch of, like, we speak the language of all the different personality
Mhm.
sets. So I discovered kind of really, I really started becoming obsessed with them when I discovered it's both temperaments and Enneagram. I can't remember which one came first, but it hit me at a time when I was confused as to like, okay, I'm in this job. I'm not really loving it. I love kind of the church as a whole, but I'm not really happy. And like,
Hmm.
who did God make me to be? You know, and why am I not fitting here? And I started to dive down both temperaments and Enneagram and discovered so much about myself. It not only helped me kind of figure out like where I fit work wise, but it helped me immensely as I reviewed relationships I've had in the past and the ones I had at the time, how I misheard people, how said something to a person and it caused a lot of drama and it was totally innocent. I'm like, what? I just said it. I just said something that like it had no intent behind it. But now understanding temperaments and personalities and Enneagram and all that stuff, it's like, oh, I know why they heard that the wrong way or heard it in a
Yeah.
different way than I meant it. And that, that helped me come to think of like, oh, that was my fault. Like I said it in a horrible way.
Yeah.
And so it really helped me communicate with people better, help me understand my place, which doesn't like that comes with a bad connotation, but like literally my place in this world, like where God is pushing me, to, like knowing who I am and the gifts and the strengths that God has given me. Like personality assessments help me with that. So deep dove into those two. Strength finders is another one. And got into Myers Briggs. Actually, I think might have been the first one I got into. So
Yeah.
there's a bunch of them, and Hogwarts House. Like each of these are like all all of them I take a little bit from. Like, oh, this is who I am. Last one's kind of a joke, but there's a bunch of them out there, and I ever since then I would pick one and then just deep dive into it and learn all I could. And it got to a point where I was like, man, I'm so obsessed with these, and I really feel passionately about them, like how it can help somebody, especially now as I'm married and have kids, how
Hmm.
it's helped me communicate with my wife, how it's helped me communicate to my kids, and help me understand how they communicate to
Hmm.
me. It's helped me in my job, and definitely as I go through any type of identity crisis, I run back to these things because it's like, oh, yes, this is how God wired me, and this is why I'm
Mm.
feeling this way or taking these things a certain way. And so it's
Well,
always been a great place to run
yeah,
back to.
talk to us about identity crises.
Yeah, that one is, I feel it's one of those things I feel very passionately about. I don't know if I have the words to put together exactly how I feel about the fact that identity is actually a really, really big deal right now, and especially in young people and youth. We grow up, social media, all these
Yeah.
different ways of telling us like, oh, this is the tribe you belong to, or this is who you
Mhm.
are, or this is how you should live because this is how you think. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
messages out there telling
And
us,
I would also add just culturally, politically, we're in a identity tension. I think of it like we're in a mass, like in a as a culture, we're in a massive identity crisis.
for sure.
But that plays out because all of these issues we're fighting about are identity issues. Like
Yep.
if me and you want to compromise about like whether, I pay you $5 or $10, that's we can kind of come at 750 if we want to. But if we're doing something about identity, like who I am as a person or the type of person that I am and what that means,
Hmm.
you can't like be married on Tuesday and Wednesday and not be married on the weekend. Like it's one or
Right.
the other. So identity issues tend to be more black and white in the sense of like they kind of stem from a way of life, really.
100%.
Yeah.
And there are
Yeah.
so many things that shape your identity. It's not just, and this is why I tell people who don't like personality assessments, who's like, oh, it puts me in a box and it just doesn't really know me. It's like, yeah, that's true. There's no personality assessment that measures all the different variables that go into making you who you are. Your birth order, where you were born, the were you born in
Hmm.
this country, a different country? Did you grow up in a two-parent household? Uh, you know,
Values. Yeah.
yeah, all the different values, religions, did you grow up with abuse?
Maturity level. Yeah.
Absolutely. All these things. And then, yeah, maturity level too. So things change over time. I mean,
Hmm.
it's so complex. These are just the best, skeletons and models of like starting points, if you will, of how people are wired and how God wired them to be. And an important point that I feel like you brought up too, like, hey, our current political climate and arguments and online spats and all this stuff, I really feel like the more you get to know about how people are wired, the more empathy you have for other people,
Hmm.
and the more you can see where other people are coming from. If you don't know, if you go around assuming everyone is like you're not going to get along with anybody, and you're going to start harboring resentment because they're not acting the way that you do.
Yeah.
But when you embrace the fact that, hey, people are born thinking a different way than you completely, it reminds you to say, oh, okay, I can now understand. I still don't agree with them, but I understand how they came to this conclusion,
Hmm.
and it gives more grace to them, just inherently. The more you get to know about how other people
Yeah.
are wired, it's very, very helpful. So that's another reason why I'm super passionate about it.
Yeah. And why dads? Why not like some
Yeah.
other category of person?
So in learning about personality assessments, this has been a journey. I got certified to be an Enneagram coach,
Mm.
and I've coached some people, and it's, as you start out, you kind of just do friends and family, and as I talked to dads specifically, well, I'll just say guys specifically. They're much less, on the whole, they're less receptive to
Mm.
diving deep into something like Enneagram. It is very, very complex and can take weeks to unpack. There's
Mhm.
so many things like, you got the wings, and you've got triads, and you've got all these other variables that go into it. And the Enneagram is a journey that you can think you're one number and then discover 2 years later, actually I'm a different number. Like it's a lot. And a lot of American males they don't want to deep dive. I mean, sometimes it takes like a life event, or some guys are wired that way, like I'm wired that way. I want to deep dive on all that stuff, but there's just, I feel like guys are more apt to kind of tune this stuff out once it gets more complicated. And this is just based on experience. Like as I'm talking to Enneagram with these guys, I feel like I'm not really hitting. So one time I was kind of coaching a group of guys, and it was a 4 week, just to overview. I took all their assessments and was walking them through it over these 4 weeks, and we did one session a week, and then the very last session, I was like, okay, I kind of went over Enneagram for you guys. You kind of get the gist. I want to talk to you about temperaments,
Mm.
because that is the like it is so easy to learn and practical that
And
I feel like
simple.
you guys will really latch on to it. And sure enough, I was right. They responded way more and understood way more in that one session with temperaments than they did with 3 with Enneagram. So I
Mm.
realized, I feel like there
So
was
it's like the gateway drug to Enneagram. Is that what
exactly, you
you're
got it. It was like
saying?
I should have flipped this. I should have started with temperaments, because
Yeah.
in order to motivate a guy to deep dive, you got to show him the benefit and the value, and not all guys get it immediately. The benefit and the value
Yeah.
uh, of really going internally and investigating stuff. A lot of guys just want to be hard on the surface, not go deep. Well, if you start with, you know, something like temperaments, which is very easy to grasp, and like, you know what, it helps you communicate with your kids, helps you communicate with your wife, and it becomes a cheat code for
Yeah.
communication. It will unlock so much for you, and it's so practical and easy to apply immediately that like guys are like, oh, this is actually great. And so I had the idea of, well, okay, let me take what I know is great about these personality assessments and try to walk guys through it and not overcomplicate it, but frame it in a way that they can consume it and then immediately use it. And I say
Mhm.
just dads specifically because I am a dad and I'm just in that world right now. So I feel like I can relate to them.
Yeah.
I've got 3 kids, 5 and under. So I'm seeing it in my own life, and I'm already seeing the benefits of it, that I want to be able to evangelize that to other dads. And also
Mhm.
I feel like it's the most important when you're a dad. Like those foundational moments with your kids, you're raising human beings. You're setting themselves, the things you say to them will stick with them for the rest of their lives. So do you want those things to be positive and uplifting and speaking their language, or do you want to always be butting heads and pushing them away, with your words, or communicating in a way that they're not getting it, and so they go off? in a different direction than you want them to. I just feel like it's a very important kind of demographic, so to speak, and I started to grow a passion for it.
Yeah. So, in case people are curious, what is your temperament in Enneagram and Working Genius?
Okay, yeah.
Who's this
So
Cory guy?
yeah, so I am a green yellow. So if you don't know temperaments, I'm phlegmatic and sanguine, which means essentially I live on peace and harmony. Um, I am very low key and internally processed. This is just talking about the green here. I speak the language of peace, and that's not just as in like conflict, but also peace in my own life. If I come up against any friction, I try to ease that friction any way I can. That can then go to laziness, and it can go to numbing out and things like that. That's kind of the shadow side of it. And then the yellow is kind of secondary. I'm so supported the green by yellow sanguine, which is a lot more fun loving, happy, and I was telling you I was in improv. That's kind of my yellow side, and a little bit more personable. Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 9, so that goes along with the green, right? The Enneagram 9 is known as the peacemaker, and that definitely plays out in my life in so many different ways. And then Working Genius, if you're familiar with that at all, I'm WD, Wonder and Discernment. So I'm at the kind of top level. I don't know if you want me to give the breakdown of what Working Genius means, all the
Well,
different
you can
letters.
just briefly, in case people are curious and
Yeah,
they could
so the
email
way
you later
they
about it.
set it up is it's like, if you're at work and you're starting a project, it's kind of like the 50,000 foot view all the way down to the 10-foot view. So the 50,000 foot view is wonder. You're like dreaming up all these new ideas, all what could be, what can all the inventing something out of nothing almost. It's like one of those like creative meetings. Like some of you love them, some of you hate them. It's throwing spaghetti on the wall, and I don't care what sticks. I'm just going to keep throwing spaghetti. It goes down. Then it goes down to invention, which is I. By the way, it spells out the word widget. So the I is invention, where it's like, okay, I take this idea that's good, and I think I know how we can make that work. Like, let me come up with different ways that we can make that work. And then discernment is the D part of it. Discernment was another one for me. It's like, okay, I see what you've invented here. Let me see where I can poke holes and find out the different sides. And have we thought of this? Have we thought of this? Like, let me really think through this whole project because I think we need to refine it. And then you go to G, galvanization. Those are the people who are like, hey, we have this new thing. It's going to help all of you. Come on board with us. Get on this train because we're going. They're the rah rah people. They're the woo people. They're the sales people. Enablement is it's the E part of it. They are the people who they live to help the team get there, like get them across the finish line on the project. They're there
Mhm.
on boots on the ground, helping you do this, helping you
Yeah.
do that for it. And then the last one is T, tenacity. Those are the people who carry it across the finish line. They live to get stuff done. Let's check this box. Like let's get it done and out of here. So WD is my genius, and then T is a frustration for me. G and T,
Mm,
galvanization and tenacity, are a frustration,
okay.
which means I don't do well with those areas.
Yeah, it sounds like a great framework, kind of similar to strengths finders in the way that you can figure out the different parts of your team to when you're working together on how like what each person's role could be on that team for that project in order to accomplish the goal with as minimal blind spots and weaknesses as possible. That's kind of one of the things that comes to my mind.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came up with this idea for dads to, hey, let's start with temperaments. Let's make it a 4 week
Hmm.
long almost crash course gauntlet. Start with temperaments. Talk about your family life and your kids and your wife, and talk about how communication matters and all of that. And then move on to Working Genius. You'll take the Working
Hmm.
Genius assessment, and I'll help you break down like what are the different letters and how does that place you in work, and where you're feeling, what are your feelings on work right now? Do you feel like you're in your zone, or do you feel like you're working out of your frustrations more, and help people understand that more? And then we go to Enneagram, which is a little bit more of a deep dive into self. So I try to frame it as, hey, I'll help you out, home, work, and self. And within 4 weeks, we can meet and go through all of these things, and you will be better set to understand yourself and other people a whole lot more than you did when you started. And then
Yeah.
if you wanted to keep going and you wanted to keep unpacking these things for following weeks, we can do that for sure. But it's just like, hey, it's a 4 week commitment. we're out. It's,
Yeah.
and it's also super, super helpful, I think, for dads.
Yeah.
So
So how does, when you think about the idea of living better or working smarter, how does this all enable somebody to do that? Like, what's the outcome that
yeah.
helps them do those things?
Yeah, I mean, I can say so many things on that. I mean, live better for sure. It's helped me live better in all the ways we mentioned, such as having, more empathy for other people, helping me reframe how I say things, helping me communicate with my kids better, helping me communicate with my wife better, helping understand what they're saying. And I'll give some practical examples here. So, my daughter is a green like me.
Hmm.
Greens are notorious for being slow movers. We just go at
Mm.
our own pace. Everything's great. We're just slow moving. We're cool. Uh, it's been interesting as a green dad seeing that play out in a green toddler. She hasn't getting her out of the house and doing something has been as a frustration. We had a big problem with her getting out of bed and getting dressed, and we get so frustrated and we almost start yelling at her like, why, you've been up there for 15 minutes, come on, we gotta go, like, why aren't you getting your pants on, all this stuff. And then I realized that was like, it just clicked to me. I'm like, she's agreeing, she's not going to do this, she's not. And the more we push, the more she's going to withdraw. That's another thing about greens is that they're really stubborn, and if you push them to go, they're going to stop more. So I decided the next day, like, you know what, I'm just going to try something. So the next morning I gently walked into her room, put my hand on her, woke her up, and said, "Hey, it's time to wake up. You've got your clothes out here on the floor. Just pick them up, put them on, and when you're ready, come on downstairs. I'll have breakfast ready for you." She was downstairs in like 5 minutes, whereas before it was taking her way too long with us just trying to push on her. So
Mm.
it's one of those things that not only did it help us be more efficient in our household, it also helped us. I like the Zoom bubble there. Uh, it also helped my daughter feel more seen and
Mm.
more like she is, I'm just projecting here, but I felt like she felt more trusted, less pressured, and was able to
Yeah.
do something on her own as opposed to just always being like having someone cracking the whip over her. And that was more honoring
Yeah.
to her as a green. So that's just an example of many, and I could say examples of my wife and communication, but we don't have all
Yeah.
this time. But that generally makes your life better. And then what you do and what you do for a living, you interact with people. So even if you don't do working genius, you interact with people, and the better you are at hearing and listening to your coworkers, to your subordinates, to your bosses, the better you do, period. So
Yeah.
that's not even with working genius. And then the better you know yourself and what your strengths are and where you really thrive, those areas, the more you can capitalize those and know them and attack those, it'll help you more focus on what gives you joy and what,
Hmm.
gets your heart beating, as opposed to, hey, this is my job. And suddenly, you've probably heard of the 80-20 rule, right? Or is it
Yeah. Yeah.
20-80? A
Pareto
job's
principle.
better if
Yeah.
you love 80% of what you do and you just the 20% kind of sucks, but you deal with it. There's definitely been times when I've like, man, I hate 80% of this job. Something's wrong. And so this can help with that too.
Yeah. So where does mentoring play a part?
So I actually, I wish I had a mentor that knew these things in my life years ago. This has all been self-taught for me. And I mean, I think regardless on whether or not you do self-teach or you do engage in something like what I'm doing and learning about personality assessments, it is very important to have um, someone who has had the experience ahead of you and letting you know, like, hey, this will be helpful for you if you do this, or something you can speak into your life for sure. This is an example of that. And for sure, this is a part of why I'm wanting to start this thing is because I want to be that for other people. I feel like I could have saved, at least 10 years of anguish and confusion, at least 10 years in my adult life if I had known this stuff, 10 years ago. If I had somebody telling me like, "Hey, you know what? You hate this job because you're this way, and it's not because you're bad at it. It's not because you're failing. It's because you're just not wired to do this job, and it's the wrong seat on the bus. So hopefully, it can be an affirming thing for people to do the personality assessments and stuff. But in general, I'm a big fan of like finding someone who has done the work and then asking them a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah. So how much do narratives and stories play a part in this, the story we tell ourselves? How have they affected you? Is some of that
As you're
anguish
saying,
related to some of the stories you were telling yourself?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Um, so are you saying narratives and stories in general, or just yeah, stories you tell yourself?
Well, both. Just however you want to take it and run with it. It's up to you.
Yeah, so my life has been all about stories, growing up on stage and then being in film and video and seeing the power of story, and learning, being the youngest child, looking at other people live life and observing and learning from that
Mm.
is important. Um, and I really do think we learn and grow from story. And something I have learned for sure through this process and also just general life is information never changes minds. It never changes lives. It never, I won't say never pushes people forward. Information can be very helpful for people. And definitely some people are more wired for information being the driving factor. But stories and examples of seeing things play out in front of your eyes, those are, touches on that empathy within you that, those are the things that bring about life change. And somebody who sits down with you and asks questions like you do, Jason, I think is paramount to growth and paramount to understanding your place in this world and everybody else's place in this world. So,
I think there's a song
the
about that.
yeah, I know. It keeps playing in my head.
Find
The
your
Michael W.
place in
Smith.
the, isn't there like an old Michael W. Smith song or something?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Place in this world. Yeah, you can tell I grew up in church for sure. But anyway, yeah. So like stories in general are a big deal. And I think the more that we pursue asking questions for people and again, like what you're doing, like asking good questions about, hey, who are you? Where are you from? And how did you get here? Uh, Opens up so much more on both ends to being willing to learn from each other and to kind of just doing life better.
Yeah. And so, are there any fictional stories or real life stories that like have really had an impact on you? I mean, you
Yeah, so I
mentioned
have
Harry
to.
Potter, so that's got to be one of
Yeah, so
them.
I have to filter through the church answers there, apart
uh,
from all the Bible stories. Yeah, um, man, I'm trying to think of ones that impacted my life. I really love movies and TV shows. So
well, give me your top movies and your top TV shows that you're thinking about rewatching.
okay, so I can give you my top movies of all time, and maybe even tell you why I love them. So like Back to the Future is my all-time favorite movie. I love
Okay.
everything with time travel. It captured my imagination as a young kid. Um, Casablanca, I really love. It's an old school black and white,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
it's like, really great, just classic love story. If you can sit through a black and white movie. And then The Sixth Sense is another one.
Mm.
The twist ending, whenever I'm able to be fooled, which I was back then when I first saw it,
Uh,
it's like it was a big
yeah.
revolutionary time for me. It actually got me into seeing the DVD commentary and all the behind the scenes of that movie with M. Night Shyamalan talking about what he did. It got me really into movies back then too. So those are the
Yeah.
big. But yeah, we're what my wife and I do on dates anytime we can. We go out to the movies. Like we love
Okay.
going to the movies and we love watching shows together. There's just something about stories, man, and when they're told in a compelling way, and being able to suspend your disbelief a little bit and let it take you away.
Hmm.
Uh, not a film snob by any stretch. I love Marvel movies and I love popcorn movies, and yeah, I'll take it all in for sure.
And then
Uh,
what about on TV side? Where do you land?
yeah. So um, I am very picky and choosy when it comes to TV shows. So like, there's not a whole lot recently that I'm watching. I love Andor. Um,
It's
it's
incredible.
the Star Wars show. It's better than the Mandalorian, which is everybody's seen the Mandalorian. Andor is better, in my opinion.
Oh
The
yeah.
way they tell a story is so good. The way they have so many different storylines going on at once, and the way that they weave all of them together is just it's really really good.
Yeah.
I yeah, I'm just now getting to Severance. Like I've seen the first couple of episodes. People keep telling me to watch it, so I'm watching that one. And that one's very unique too.
Yeah. Well, since you're a personality guy, I want to introduce you to this idea called movie shapes.
Okay.
And we won't go too far into it, but I'll just show it to you real quick, in case you're interested. But the idea is like, what's your movie personality?
Oh,
And
okay.
so we've actually identified, me and a friend, he's a screenwriter, his name's Addison, and these character preferences. So dialogue preferences, story preferences. So we have all these different what we call audience attributes,
Okay.
movie dimensions. So we got character, story, setting, dialogue, performance, visual, audio. So those are the movie shapes dimension one, and then the second dimension is the audience, which is the relevance to the story, the novelty, the clarity, the impact, the believability, the depth, and investment. And we've just defined all of those, and it creates a shape. So you
Oh
have a
my
movie
gosh.
values shape, and then
Yeah.
you have an audience attribute shape. And then down here, I'll just go to our comparison. So we can actually, he's got his shape and my shape, and then we can overlay and see where we're similar and different.
Oh, that's so cool.
Uh, yeah. But the idea now is like one of the things that we were like fighting about is there are movies he loved that I didn't, and there were movies I loved that he didn't. But
Yeah.
every once in a while, we find these movies where we'd intersect, like Infinity War being one of them,
Okay.
Avengers. And so we're like, why do we both love this movie? You
Yeah.
know, and so this kind of spawned this conversation that led to developing this system.
That's
So
awesome.
check it out. Tell me
Oh,
what you
sure.
discover.
Yeah, I'll do that and have my wife take it. Well, yeah, we'll figure that out. That's great.
Yeah. Um, so stories are a big part of being human, but systems are another piece. And this is a system. Personality tests are a system. So tell us how you think about systems.
Systems are kind of like a dirty word for me.
Mm,
And if you looked at my personality assessments, you'll see that I'm very, very unstructured. And I'm very, very like, uh, I mean, my room reflects my brain. So like, I mean, I'm very unorganized and, I need systems in my life. And I'm realizing that more and more too, as I get older, how much I need, and also, like as an improviser too, I've kind of like prided myself on being able to get by without preparation, without
yeah.
systems. I can go on the fly. I got too comfortable with it. And I look back on my life on some certain things that I've done, and I'm like, you know what? If I just put some effort into the preparation of that, that would have gone a lot better.
Mm,
Um, and so I feel like I'm a baby when it comes to systems.
yeah.
But at the same time, you said, like personality assessments, they kind of like are a system.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can understand them when somebody makes them, but abiding by them, I get a little rebellious. But
So you're the guy you mentioned earlier that doesn't want to be boxed in.
yeah, I mean, honestly, like I relate to that. I really do. I get a little rebellious when it comes to it. But I've learned recently, like, oh my goodness, if I just put um just a little bit of like repetition and um, habit into preparation, I can go so much further than I do. And that's just so many different walks of life. So I've read the um, Atomic Habits by
Mhm.
James Clear, and it's very much motivated me to like, hey, how about I just start like baby steps at a time, doing things like setting a routine, waking up at a specific time every single day, and then moving that to all right, when I wake up, like let's put on some running shoes, or, let's go downstairs and do quiet time. Like, how can I add some structure to my day and systems? And it terrifies me. It scares me, like trying to cut
Mm,
stuff because I'm so
okay.
used to living off the seat of my pants. but
Yeah.
I recognize the importance of them.
Well, I will. I'll just throw this a plug. This is my friend Ross Boone. He developed this app for Christians called Creature Habits,
Yeah.
and it's based on some of those ideas from that book and other places for Christians to develop spiritual disciplines, so meditation, praying, meditation, scripture reading, um, reflecting on art and stuff. And he's an artist, so he does these beautiful designs in the app. So that's something that you could make it into a game of sorts.
And what's the name of it again?
It's called Creature Habits.
Creature Habits. Okay.
Yeah, Creature Habits. So
You're bringing a lot of like really good resources.
I'm
That's good. I
I'm
didn't
sharing
expect
some
that.
some systems, so you take it and run. Tell me what you think, and he's real receptive. So if you have ideas, you can just let us know, and he'll probably update it. So
Yeah, again, this is me projecting on people, but it comes back to like, I guess that is why, like, trying to build the personality assessments thing of like, I feel like guys need their hands held throughout the whole process. That's because I need my hand held throughout
yeah, yeah.
different
Well, you
process.
mentioned friction, I think earlier. Did you use
Yeah,
the word friction? I think friction is just a deterrent, like for
yeah,
everyone. And if we can remove some of that friction or break it into little steps or break it into pieces, like you said, like temperament to Enneagram versus Enneagram to temperament, like if you figure out the smallest version, the
mhm,
seed, and then someone's like, oh, I see the value, like the relevance is part of the thing, which is why is this, why is Enneagram relevant to me? So why should I waste all this time on this complicated thing? But if you can give them little glimpses of the potential, then and you give it to them a little piece at a time, then they can start to see that potential
yeah,
and make it worthwhile to go through the learning changing process because we don't like change. So
yeah. It's a great. I mean, yeah, James Clear talks about that in the book. Like, yeah, like the most successful businesses, it's really just been about removing friction for people, and especially in the technological world just being able to ask Alexa to play country music instead of
yeah,
doing something that was already super easy, which is take your phone out of your pocket and play music from that. It's like, man, they
yeah,
just make the more friction you remove for people, I guess the more successful you are.
yeah.
So,
Well,
which
and
I feel
that's
like,
kind of go
oh,
ahead.
good. Okay, well, I just feel like that's not a great view on humanity. Like we're all just like looking to be super lazy, but you know,
Well, I,
it's
I think so. Friction. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in time a little bit. For people that don't know about Netflix, it used to be this thing where you send in DVDs, right? And so I'm the kind of person like I love movies. So um, I actually stayed on the DVD program longer than I did than most people because you could pick the movie you wanted. And so that to me was more valuable than being the friction, like not having friction where you go on and stream.
yeah.
Like if I had to stream between a movie that I kind of would want to watch versus a one I really want to watch, I will go through friction to get to the one I want. But I won't, so it's kind of there's a worthwhile dynamic I think that's also worth zooming in on because friction is good, but we are also willing to overcome it for something we want if we
Yeah.
really want it.
And usually the things that we have to overcome friction for are more worth it than the things that are frictionless in the long
Yeah,
run.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Uh, like binging a Netflix show, yeah, okay, that is more rewarding in the moment, but you know, uh, being more selective about your content, for instance, and doing the DVD shipping, it's probably
Yeah.
the quality is better than the quantity in the end. You
Yeah.
know, it
One thing I
personally,
say is like social media robs me of reading books.
yeah,
Like as an example, like I'd rather read a book and feel better after reading it than a couple hours like scrolling through reels, which I don't even probably remember most of them. So
yeah. So I mean, this maybe this is ties in with friction.
okay, yeah.
I discovered an app, and maybe this falls in the line of systems that like I have turned my smartphone into a dumb phone.
Oh, okay.
So it is an app called Dumb Phone where you can just take away all the apps that distract you and leave only the ones that like you
Oh, okay.
actually use. So
Yeah.
deleting all social media and deleting all games and just leaving the bare bones minimum on there, and it's been pretty helpful. And like really, and one of the apps I left up there was my Kindle. So it's like anytime I
Mm,
have the urge to pull out my phone, like that motion's still there when I get bored, which I hate. But when I do, I either A, be like, oh yeah, I don't need to just put it back. Or B, it's like, oh well, I am in line. Let me do something. I'll pull up my Kindle and start reading
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
And that has been a lot. That's been very helpful for me
Yeah.
in trying to be more productive in how I
Yeah.
spend my time.
Well, and I think the idea there is to actually create tension, or not tension, friction, to
Yeah.
create friction. So like one of the things I did, it is to cut back on social. I just took the apps off of my phone. So now if I'm on them, like I have to go on my computer and then look.
Yeah.
And so that I added, and then I have like it in my bookmarks, but I have that bookmarks like kind of hard to get to. So like
Uh-huh.
I just created friction so it makes it harder, and then I do it less. So that's, I think, in other words, maybe this is a key insight. Make the things that you want to be doing, like in a good, healthy sense.
Yeah.
Remove all the friction, and then add friction to things that you tend to do but aren't very good, junk food stuff, and then just put them in the attic, like in a box.
Yeah.
And then if you really want the Doritos, you go up there and get them. But you're not going to be getting Doritos like out of every time you walk by the kitchen.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the principles in like an is
Okay.
putting friction where you need it to be and taking it away when you need it to be taken away.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really tricking your brain and
Yeah.
having the discipline to do it. It's hard. It's hard. It's easier said than done for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned
And
an
then put it
example.
like layer your broccoli and spinach
Yeah.
with sugar, so you trick
Yes.
your brain into thinking it's a good thing.
Yeah. There's the reward system too. He mentioned an example of somebody who would like take their TV out of the living room and put it in a closet
Mhm.
and only watch TV when it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's worth taking it out of my closet, setting it up, hooking
Yeah.
it up, and doing a lot more. And that was
That
my
my parents that's what my parents did. We had a
yeah.
lot of TVs in timeout for a few weeks.
Yeah.
um and we didn't even have cable, so
Oh man. Yeah.
but all right, so what parting words of wisdom you want to share with us that you haven't gotten a chance to say?
Um, yeah, I would just say it's important to know yourself. I'd say more than ever to really dive deep and know yourself. And a lot of people don't know where is the first place to look. And I would just say there's a lot of different voices out there telling you who you are. Really, only you know who you are. And personality assessments is one way to have those aha moments.
Yeah.
But they're not everything, and a lot of work comes with them. But self discovery and self realization does not come from other people telling you who you are. It really is an inward journey. Um, and if you're a believer, honestly, it always comes back to Christ. It always comes back to like God made you who you are, and you are loved, and you are enough, exactly who you are. Are there things you can work on your own? For sure, and He probably wants that for you. But remember, when it comes down to it, you're a child of God, and He died for you all the same. And really, you have the freedom of not knowing every in and out of who you are. You have the freedom of knowing that whoever you are, you're who God wants you to be, and He can do that work in you. So
Yeah.
really, the first place to look is there in God's Word, and just opening that up, and really accepting yourself, who you are, before
Hmm.
you can really truly do the work of adjusting your habits and learning how other people are wired and uncovering how God wired you in new and different ways. So they go hand in hand together. And I love to stress this to people when we start. It's you know this is just a piece of the puzzle. It's up to
Hmm.
you to keep finding those pieces, and really the only person who has the complete puzzle is God,
Yeah.
and that will be the source for you of trying to find
Okay.
those missing pieces.
How can people connect with you if they're interested in learning more or doing one of your programs?
Yeah, so this is brand new. I actually haven't launched it publicly yet, but if you are in that, if you are a dad and you're interested in going through this program, we can start if you want to. I haven't publicly launched it yet, but just email me at cdraper85 at gmail.com. So that's CDRAPER 85 at Gmail. and we can start that conversation. There is a cost to it, but I feel like I've made it as affordable as possible. We can schedule like a 15-minute chat, talk about it. And I won't charge you anything until you agree to it. But if you're
Yeah,
interested, just shoot me an email and we'll get things started.
cool. And if someone wants to watch your improv performances, where do they find you?
Yeah, so I'm a part of a national improv troupe started in Milwaukee called Fish Sticks Comedy. You can go to fishstickscomedy.com. We we don't do any central location, but we have an Atlanta team, we have a Milwaukee team, we have a Denver team, and a Dallas team that we'll do any show that books us. The big thing is that we're family friendly. Um, we don't go blue, as they say. A lot of improv places you go to, they cannot boast that. You can take your kids to our shows and you'll have a good time. We do churches, we do corporate events, we do parties, and just go to fishstickscomedy.com and you can find out how to book us. But
Yeah.
I don't have anything on the books right now, I don't think. But yeah, if you guys want to have some fun at your corporate events or churches or anything like that, hit us up.
Now, what if someone is from a church that's interested in joining the Church Irresistible Network? What's their next step?
Yeah, for sure. It's go to the website irresistible.church. You can click a button that says start a conversation, and that'll take you through the process. We have a YouTube channel that has a lot of like interviews and videos about who we are and what we do. We also have an app, um, and it's called Equip. Or if you search in the App Store Irresistible Church Network, it'll come up, and it contains hours of content on how we believe churches can be better and what they can do to better their staff health, their outward focus, and how you can learn to preach better, like any aspect of a church. If you're a part of church ministry, like we have something, elder boards, we have a ton of content on like how you can make your ministry better.
Cool. Cory, thank you so much for sharing your life with us today. This has been another episode of the Share Life Podcast. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and we'll see you on the next one.